Captain Tak stood tall as the massive alien ship descended through Earth's atmosphere. The landing pad at Outpost 7 wasn't built for vessels of this size, but somehow the ship touched down with perfect precision. Tak adjusted his collar and looked at his team. They all seemed nervous, but tried to hide it. "Remember," Tak said to his team, "this is a historic moment. First official contact with the Makari. Stay calm and follow protocol." The ship's door opened with a hiss of steam. 3 tall figures emerged. The Makari were impressive beings, nearly 7 feet tall with smooth gray skin that reflected the sunlight. They had 4 arms and moved with strange grace despite their size. Their eyes were large and completely black. The one in front wore elaborate armor with symbols that probably showed rank. This had to be Commander Vrek, the leader mentioned in their transmission. Tak stepped forward. "Welcome to Earth. I am Captain Tak of the United Earth Defense Force. We are honored to meet your people." Commander Vrek tilted his head slightly. When he spoke, his voice came through a translator device on his chest. "The Makari Empire acknowledges your greeting, human. We have traveled far to reach your world." Something in Vrek's tone made Tak uneasy. He had been in enough tense situations to recognize when something wasn't right. Still, he followed the diplomatic plan. "We have prepared a meeting room where we can discuss peaceful relations between our worlds. If you'll follow me." The meeting started well enough. The humans offered information about Earth, and the Makari shared limited details about their civilization. They described a vast empire spanning dozens of star systems. "Your technology is impressive," said Vrek, studying a tablet showing Earth's achievements, "particularly your stealth systems." Tak noticed how the alien commander kept returning to questions about Earth's military capabilities. Each time, Tak provided only the approved information. 3 hours into the meeting, Tak's communication officer, Han, received an urgent message. He whispered in Tak's ear, "Sir, our satellite detected 3 more Makari ships entering orbit. They didn't announce themselves." Tak kept his expression neutral, but felt his heart race. He excused himself and stepped aside with his team. "Something's wrong," he said quietly. "Contact headquarters and—" A deafening alarm blared through the outpost. The lights flickered. Commander Vrek stood suddenly, his 4 arms spreading wide. "Your species shows promise, Captain Tak. It is unfortunate we cannot allow such promise to develop further." The other Makari pulled out weapons that had somehow escaped the security scans. "What is this?" Tak demanded, reaching for his sidearm. "The expansion of the Makari Empire," Vrek said simply. "Your world has resources we need and a strategic position we want." The first shots hit before Tak could respond. 2 of his team fell immediately. Chaos erupted as security forces rushed in, only to be cut down by weapons far beyond Earth's technology. "Initiate emergency protocol." Tak shouted into his comm device as he pulled his wounded communication officer behind a fallen table. "The outpost is under attack. I repeat." A blast hit nearby, showering them with debris. Through the smoke and confusion, Tak saw Makari soldiers pouring in from multiple entrances. How had they infiltrated so quickly? "Sir," Han coughed, blood on his lips. "The message didn't go through. They're jamming everything." Tak looked around desperately. Most of his team was down. The few still fighting were being overwhelmed. In the corner, he spotted Corporal Ju firing at the invaders before diving into a maintenance shaft. At least someone might survive to warn Earth. As Makari soldiers surrounded him, Tak stood up straight, facing Commander Vrek with defiance. "This isn't over," Tak said. "You don't know humans. You don't know what we're capable of." Vrek made a sound that might have been laughter. "Soon, there will be nothing left of your kind but stories. And the Makari do not believe in ghost stories." The last thing Tak saw was the flash of Vrek's weapon. Pain woke Corporal Ju. She opened her eyes to darkness and the smell of burnt metal. Her body felt heavy, like someone had placed rocks on her chest. She tried to move and gasped as pain shot through her left side. "Still alive," she whispered, surprised by her own voice in the silence. The maintenance shaft had saved her life. When the attack began, she had slipped into it just before the main explosion. Now she lay in the narrow space between walls, listening to the sounds above her. Heavy footsteps, strange voices. The Makari were still here. Jiwoo checked her wounds in the dim emergency lighting. A deep cut on her arm. Burns on her leg. Nothing fatal. Her small medkit would help for now. After bandaging herself, she checked her equipment. Her standard-issue pistol was still there, along with her combat knife. Her comm device was broken. She had no way to call for help. "Think, Jiwoo," she told herself. What would Captain Tak do? The memory of her captain made her chest tight. She had seen him fall. She had seen everyone fall. Jiwoo crawled through the shaft until she found a vent opening. Carefully, she peered through. What she saw made her blood run cold. The outpost's main hall was now a Makari command center. At least 30 aliens moved around setting up equipment. In the center stood Commander Vrek, pointing at a holographic map of Earth. "The humans have no knowledge of our attack," Vrek was saying. "This outpost was isolated enough that we have time to establish our forward base before they realize what has happened." Another Makari, smaller but with more decorative armor, stepped forward. "The main invasion fleet will arrive in 10 Earth days. Will that be enough time to disable their defense systems?" "More than enough," Vrek replied. "Their technology is primitive. They will fall easily." Jiwoo pulled back from the vent, her mind racing. 10 days. Earth had 10 days before a full invasion. And no one knew it was coming. She had to get a message out somehow. But how? All communications were likely being monitored or jammed. Jiwoo crawled deeper into the maintenance system. She knew the outpost well. Every corner, every room, every supply closet. That knowledge would keep her alive. Hours passed as she made her way to the storage section. There she found emergency supplies, food, water, and a first aid kit with better medicine than her small med kit. She also found something unexpected, a prototype stealth suit. Jiwoo remembered hearing about it. The research division had been testing new technology designed to mask human life signs and bend light around the wearer. It wasn't perfect. The battery only lasted a few hours, but it could make her nearly invisible. "This changes everything," she whispered. Jiwoo studied the manual quickly. The suit wouldn't make her completely invisible, but in darkness or shadows, she would be very hard to see. More importantly, it masked body heat and heartbeat signatures. As she slipped the suit on over her uniform, a plan began to form. She couldn't escape. The Makari had the outpost surrounded. She couldn't call for help. All communications were blocked. But she could watch. She could listen. She could gather intelligence about the enemy's plans. And maybe, just maybe, find a way to get a message to Earth. Jiwoo activated the suit. The fabric hugged her body and seemed to shimmer slightly before adjusting to match her surroundings. She caught a glimpse of herself in a broken piece of glass. The effect was eerie, like she was only half there. A ghost of herself. That gave her an idea. During the brief meeting with the Makari, one of the cultural officers had mentioned something interesting. The aliens seemed to have a strong reaction to any mention of spirits or the supernatural. They had quickly changed the subject when Earth's ghost stories came up. "They don't believe in ghosts," Jiwoo whispered to herself. "Good. They won't be looking for one." She checked her pistol, made sure the suit was working properly, and slipped out of the storage room. It was time to haunt the Makari. Colonel Hyun stared at the broken data stream on the main screen. The numbers didn't make sense. Outpost 7 had gone dark 12 hours ago. At first, they thought it was just equipment failure. Now, he wasn't so sure. "Play it again," he ordered. The technician nodded and replayed the last transmission from Outpost 7. Captain Tak's voice came through, broken and filled with static. "Under attack. Not what they. Makari are. Prepare defenses. Earth is. Then nothing. Colonel Hyun's face showed no emotion, but his hands tightened into fists. "Sir," said Lieutenant Kang, "do we alert the United Earth Defense Council?" Hyun shook his head. "Not yet. We need more information. If we sound the alarm based on a broken message, it could cause panic. Or worse, we could start a war based on a misunderstanding." But deep down, Hyun knew this was no misunderstanding. He had known Captain Tak for 15 years. Tak wouldn't send a warning unless there was real danger. Hyun made his decision. "Get me Secure Line Alpha and clear this room." The technicians and officers looked surprised but followed orders. When Hyun was alone, he entered a series of codes into his private terminal. The screen changed to show a simple message. HFY Stories authorization required. Hyun placed his hand on the scanner and spoke clearly. "Colonel Hyun, authorization code Whisper Shadow 9. The screen changed again. HFY activated. 20 minutes later, 4 people entered Hyun's office. They wore no rank insignia, and their uniforms had no unit patches. They were ghosts in the military system, soldiers who officially didn't exist. "Thank you for coming so quickly," said Hyun. "We have a situation." Major Doyeon, the team leader, stepped forward. He was tall and lean, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. "Ghost team is ready, sir." Beside him stood Lieutenant Subin, a woman with short hair and a serious face. She carried a tablet and what looked like advanced communication equipment. She was the team's technology specialist. Sergeant Minho stood quietly by the door. His muscular frame made even the standard uniform look tight. The weapons expert rarely spoke, but when he did, people listened. The last member was Corporal Yuna, whose gentle appearance hid her skills as both a medic and a deadly fighter. "Outpost 7 has gone dark," explained Hyun, showing them the broken transmission. Captain Tak was meeting with representatives from the Makari, an alien civilization we recently made contact with. Something went wrong. "You think they attacked?" asked Doyeon. "I think we need to find out exactly what happened," replied Hyun. "And if Outpost 7 has fallen, we need to know the Makari's plans." He pressed a button, and a hologram appeared showing specialized equipment. "This is why I've activated Ghost Protocol. You'll be using the new XS-7 stealth systems." Lieutenant Subin stepped closer to examine the hologram. "These are still in testing phase." "Yes," Hyun admitted, "but they're the best chance we have. The XS-7 suits can bend light around the wearer and mask life signs. In darkness, you'll be nearly invisible. Even in daylight, you'll appear as little more than a heat shimmer." "How long can they run?" asked Doyeon. 3 hours at full power. 6 if you use them sparingly." Sergeant Minho spoke for the first time. "And our weapons? Modified to work with the stealth field. Silent and deadly." Colonel Hyun's face grew more serious. "Your mission is simple but dangerous. Infiltrate Outpost 7. Discover what happened. Find any survivors. Learn the Makari's intentions. Then get that information back to Earth." Corporal Yuna asked the question they were all thinking. "And if the Makari are hostile?" "Then you become the thing they don't expect," said Hyun. "You become the ghosts of fallen humanity, haunting them until reinforcements can arrive." The team nodded. They understood the risk. They knew most wouldn't return. "We leave in 30 minutes, said Doyeon. As they prepared to go, Colonel Hyun added one last piece of information. "Our cultural team's initial report suggests the Makari have a strong aversion to anything supernatural. They're highly logical beings who reject the concept of spirits or ghosts." "Use that." Major Doyeon smiled slightly. "Then ghosts we shall become." The Makari guard stood straight, his 4 hands gripping his weapon tightly. Something felt wrong tonight. The air in the human outpost seemed colder than usual. He had been standing at his post for 3 hours, and nothing had happened. Yet he couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. "Control Post 7 to base. All clear, he reported through his communication device. As he turned to continue his patrol, a small sound made him stop. It was like metal softly hitting metal, coming from a dark corner. He pointed his light there, but saw nothing. "Who's there?" he called out. No answer. The guard moved forward, step by step. Another sound, this time behind him. He spun around. Nothing. "This place is affecting my mind," he muttered to himself. Commander Vrek had warned them about this. Humans were primitive creatures who believed in spirits and other nonsense. Being in their building might make some soldiers imagine things. The Makari were above such foolishness. Yet, as the guard turned back to his post, he couldn't help feeling that someone had just walked past him. Corporal Juwu smiled as she slipped past the confused guard. Her stealth suit was working perfectly. For 5 days now, she had been playing a dangerous game with the Makari invaders. A missing tool here, a moved object there. Strange sounds in empty rooms. It wasn't much, but it was working. The aliens were getting nervous. Juwu had learned to time her activities with the stealth suit's battery life. 3 hours of action, then 9 hours of hiding and charging. She'd found a small space in the ventilation system that the Makari couldn't reach and made it her home. Tonight, she had a bigger plan. The aliens had set up their main computer in what used to be the outpost's command center. If she could access it, she might find a way to send a message to Earth. As she moved silently through the shadows, Juwu noticed something strange. Some of the Makari were arguing. She paused to listen. "I tell you, I saw something move. It was like a human, but transparent," said one soldier. "Control yourself," said his commander. "There are no survivors, and there are certainly no such things as ghosts. But the missing equipment, the sounds at night. Enough. One more word of this spirit talk, and you'll be reported to Commander Vrek. Do you want to be sent for mental reconditioning?" The soldier lowered his head. "No, sir." Juwu smiled again. Their fear was a weapon she could use. On the other side of the outpost, Major Doyun and his Ghost Protocol team had just finished cutting through the outer wall. Their stealth suits hummed quietly as they slipped inside. "We're in," Doyun whispered into his comm unit. "Subin, what are you seeing?" Lieutenant Subin checked her scanner. Multiple Makari life signs throughout the building. Their main force seems to be in the central area. I'm also picking up. Wait, that's strange. "What is it?" asked Doyun. "There's another life sign. Human, somewhere in the ventilation system on the east side." Doyun looked surprised. "A survivor? After 5 days?" "Looks like it," said Subin. "And they're moving around, not captured." Sergeant Minho checked his weapon. "Should we make contact?" "Not yet," ordered Doyun. "We need to understand the situation first. Yuna, take Minho and check the east quadrant. Stay in stealth mode. Subin and I will place the monitoring devices as planned." As the team split up, they began noticing something odd. The Makari soldiers seemed on edge. They were jumpy, constantly looking over their shoulders. "They're scared," whispered Yuna as she and Minho passed a group of alien guards. "Of what?" asked Minho. They got their answer moments later when they overheard 2 Makari talking. Another report came in. "Third one tonight," said one. "About the ghost?" asked the other, voice lowered. "Don't use that word. Commander Vrek will have you punished. But, yes, something moving through walls. Equipment missing. Whispers in empty rooms." Minho and Yuna exchanged looks through their semi-visible stealth suits. "Looks like we're not the first ghosts to haunt this place," said Minho. Back at their entry point, Doyun received an unexpected message from Colonel Hyun. "The Makari fleet has changed course. They're arriving in 3 days, not 10. Whatever you're going to do it fast." Time was running out. Lieutenant Subin sat in the darkness of what had once been a storage closet. Her stealth suit was deactivated to save power. Screens from her portable equipment cast a blue glow on her face as she studied the data. "This is fascinating," she whispered to Major Doyan, who stood guard by the door. "What have you found?" asked Doyan. "The stealth technology is affecting the Makari in ways we didn't expect," said Subin, pointing to a brain scan on her screen. "Look at this. When a Makari detects our stealth field, even if they can't consciously see us, their brain lights up in the fear center. So they can sense us somehow." "Not exactly," Subin explained. "The stealth field gives off a very low-level energy that's harmless to humans. But Makari brains are different. The energy triggers something deep in their minds, something primal." Doyan leaned closer to see the screen. "Can we use this?" Subin smiled. "We already are, but we can do better." She adjusted some settings on her equipment. "I can modify our stealth suits to amplify that effect. Make it stronger, more targeted. Will it hurt them?" "No," said Subin, "but it will scare them. Very badly." In another part of the outpost, Corporal Yuna and Sergeant Minho were tracking the mysterious human life sign. "Whoever they are, they're good at hiding," whispered Minho as they moved through a narrow maintenance passage. "The signal is stronger here," said Yuna, checking her scanner. "They should be just ahead." They turned a corner and found themselves facing the barrel of a pistol. "Don't move," said a woman's voice from the shadows. Minho and Yuna froze. They could barely see the outline of someone in the darkness. "We're human," said Yuna quickly. "Earth Defense Force. Ghost Protocol." There was a pause. Then the figure stepped forward into the dim light. It was a woman in a dirty uniform with a makeshift stealth suit over it. Her face was thin and tired, but her eyes were sharp and alert. "Corporal Juwu," she said, "Outpost 7 security team." Yuna lowered her weapon. "You've been surviving here all this time. Alone." Juwu nodded. 5 days. Hiding. Watching. And causing some trouble when I can." Minho looked impressed. "You're the ghost they've been talking about." A small smile crossed Juwu's face. "The Makari don't like things they can't explain. I've been giving them plenty to worry about." Back at the Makari Command Center, Commander Vrek was losing patience. 3 more reports of equipment failure," said his second-in-command. "And 5 soldiers claimed they saw moving shadows." "This is unacceptable," growled Vrek. "These are elite warriors, not frightened children. There are no such things as ghosts." He slammed one of his 4 hands on the table. "Increase patrols. Check every room, every corner. Find whatever is causing these disturbances, and any soldier who speaks of spirits or hauntings will be punished." As the officers left to carry out his orders, Vrek stood alone in the command center. He would never admit it to his soldiers, but something about this place bothered him too. Sometimes, from the corner of his eye, he thought he saw movement. But when he turned, nothing was there. Major Doyan met with his complete team, now including Corporal Juwu, in their hidden base. "The invasion fleet arrives in 3 days," he told them. "We need to disrupt their operations before then." "I've been gathering intelligence," said Juwu. "The Makari have a weakness. Their soldiers are linked to their commanders through some kind of mental network. If we can break the commander's confidence, the whole force will be affected." Lieutenant Subin nodded excitedly. "That fits with my findings. The fear response I detected could spread through their ranks like a virus. So we don't need to fight them all," said Doyan. "We just need to terrify their leaders. And I've modified our stealth technology to maximize the fear effect," added Subin. "When we activate these new settings, we won't just be invisible. To the Makari, we'll be like walking nightmares." Sergeant Minho smiled. "Time to show these aliens why humans have been telling ghost stories for thousands of years." They all nodded in agreement. The plan was set. The haunting would begin for real. The humans gathered in their hidden base. Maps and plans of the outpost covered the walls. Corporal Juwu pointed to a section of the map. "This is where the Makari keep their most important officer, Sub-Commander Krell. He's Vrek's right hand, and the link between the ground forces and the incoming fleet. Major Doyun studied the location. Heavy security. 6 guards at all times, said Juwu. But I've been watching their patterns. There's a 10-second gap during shift changes. Lieutenant Subin looked up from her work on the stealth suits. 10 seconds isn't much time. It's all we need, said Sergeant Minho confidently. If these modified suits work like you say they will. Subin handed out small devices to each team member. Attach these to your stealth suits. They'll boost the fear effect by 300%. But be careful. The battery drain is much faster. You'll have about 40 minutes at full power. Juwu examined her device with interest. Will it work with my prototype suit too? I've adjusted it to be compatible, said Subin. Your suit is an earlier version of ours, but the basic technology is the same. Corporal Yunha laid out medical supplies. I also prepared these, she said, holding up small injectors. Sedatives that should work on Makari physiology. Once we capture Krell, we need to keep him quiet. Doyun nodded, pleased with the preparations. We move at 200 hours. That's when the outpost is at its quietest. As the others continued planning, Juwu took Doyun aside. There's something you should know, she said quietly. The Makari, they killed everyone. I saw it happen. Captain Tak, my friends, they didn't stand a chance. Doyun's face showed no emotion, but his voice was gentle. You survived. You fought back. That's what matters now. I want them to pay, said Juwu, her hands tightening into fists. They will, promised Doyun. But remember, our mission is to stop the invasion, not just get revenge. Earth needs us to succeed. Juwu nodded slowly. I understand. Earth comes first. At exactly 200 hours, the operation began. The 5 humans, now nearly invisible in their enhanced stealth suits, moved through the outpost like shadows. When they passed Makari soldiers, the aliens shivered and looked around nervously. Some placed all 4 hands on their weapons, eyes darting from corner to corner. It's working, whispered Subin over their secure comm system. Their fear response is off the charts. They reached the corridor leading to Sub-Commander Krell's quarters. 6 guards stood at attention, but they looked uneasy. One kept glancing over his shoulder at nothing. The team waited silently. Then, as Juwu had predicted, the shift change began. For a brief moment, the new guards and the old guards were focused on exchanging information. Doyun gave the signal. They moved swiftly through the gap, slipping past the distracted guards. Inside, Sub-Commander Krell was studying battle plans on a large screen. He was taller than most Makari, with darker skin and elaborate markings on his face. Now, said Doyun. All 5 humans deactivated their stealth suits at once, appearing suddenly in the room. Before Krell could shout, Minho was behind him, pressing a weapon to his head. Yunha quickly injected the sedative. The Makari officer's eyes widened in shock, then grew unfocused as the drug took effect. Secure the room, ordered Doyun. Juwu and Subin moved to block the door and disable any monitoring devices. He'll be conscious but compliant, said Yuna, checking Krell's vital signs. The sedative affects their aggression centers first. The alien commander stared at them with a mixture of fear and confusion. Impossible, he slurred. All humans at this outpost were eliminated. Not all of us, said Juwu, stepping closer. Some of us became ghosts. Krell's 4 arms trembled. There are no such things as ghosts. Then what are we? Asked Doyun, activating his stealth suit partially so that he flickered between visible and invisible. For the first time in recorded history, a high-ranking Makari officer showed true fear. What do you want? Asked Krell. Information, said Doyun. About your fleet, your plans, and something else. Why your kind fears the unseen so much. As they began their questioning, alarms suddenly blared throughout the outpost. They know we're here, said Minho, moving to the window. Outside, Dozens of Makari soldiers were mobilizing. At their center stood Commander Freck, issuing orders. The team exchanged worried looks. Their haunting had just become much more dangerous. "We need to move," said Major Doyun as the alarms continued to sound. "Minho, Yunha, secure our exit route. Subin, keep monitoring their communications. Juwu, help me with Krell." The sedated Makari officer struggled weakly as they lifted him. His 4 arms made him awkward to carry. "Where are you taking me?" asked Krell, his voice slurred. "Somewhere quiet," replied Doyun. "We have questions that need answers." They moved quickly through back corridors, using Juwu's knowledge of the outpost. The alarms were causing chaos among the Makari soldiers, many of whom were already on edge from the hauntings. Eventually, they reached an old storage room deep in the outpost that Juwu had prepared as a backup hiding place. It was small, with thick walls that blocked signals. Most importantly, the Makari had overlooked it in their takeover. Once inside, they secured Krell to a chair. The alien commander seemed more alert now, but still affected by the sedative. "You cannot escape," said Krell. "Commander Freck will find you." "He's been trying for days," said Juwu coolly. "I'm still here." Lieutenant Subin set up her equipment and nodded to Doyun. "We're secure. No signals in or out." Doyun stood before Krell. "Let's start simply. Why is your fleet coming to Earth?" Krell's black eyes stared defiantly. "The Makari expand. That is what we do. Your world has resources we need." "There are many worlds with resources," said Doyun. "Why rush the attack on Earth?" For a moment, Krell was silent. Then he said, "Your technology. It is concerning." "What technology?" "Your stealth systems, your ability to hide. No other species we've encountered has developed this particular skill." Subin looked up from her equipment. "Are you afraid of our stealth technology?" Krell's 4 hands clenched. "Makari fear nothing." Juwu stepped forward. "That's a lie. I've been watching you for days. Your soldiers jump at shadows. They whisper about ghosts when they think no one can hear." "Primitive superstition," snapped Krell. "A weakness some soldiers have not overcome." Doyun leaned closer. "Not just soldiers. You too. I can see it in your eyes when we use our stealth suits." To prove his point, he activated his suit partially. His form became blurry, parts of him fading in and out. Krell tried to look away, but couldn't hide his reaction. All 4 hands trembling, his breathing becoming rapid. "Tell us why," demanded Doyun. "Why does this affect you so strongly?" Krell seemed to battle with himself. The sedative had weakened his resolve, and fear was doing the rest. "In our ancient past," he finally said, "before we became space travelers, before technology, there were predators." "Predators?" asked Subin, moving closer. "They hunted us," said Krell, his voice dropping to a whisper. "They could change their skin, blend with surroundings. We could not see them until they struck. Millions of our ancestors died." "Evolution," said Subin, understanding dawning on her face. "Your species evolved a heightened fear response to anything that can hide or appear invisible." "We overcame it," insisted Krell. "We hunted the predators to extinction. We built a civilization based on logic and order. We banished superstition and fear." "But you didn't overcome it," said Doyun. "You just varied it. Deep in your minds, that fear still lives." Krell's defiance crumbled. "Yes, the fear remains in our genetic memory. That is why. That is why your stealth technology disturbs us so deeply. It triggers something primal that we cannot control." Juwu smiled coldly. "And that's why you attacked us first. You saw our stealth technology and panicked." "The High Command saw reports of your invisibility research," admitted Krell. "They ordered immediate attack. No negotiation. Earth must be conquered before you could develop the technology further." The humans exchanged glances. The truth was now clear. "Thank you for your honesty," said Doyun. He nodded to Yuna, who prepared another injection. "What will you do with me?" asked Krell. "Nothing harmful," said Doyan. "But we need you unconscious for a while." As Yuna administered the sedative, Krell's eyes began to close. But before he lost consciousness, he said one last thing. "You cannot win. Even knowing our weakness, we are too many." "We'll see about that," said Doyan. "Humans have been turning weaknesses into weapons for our entire history." With Krell unconscious, the team gathered to plan their next move. They now understood the enemy better than the enemy understood themselves. It was time to use that knowledge. Commander Vrek paced the command center, all four of his hands clenched into fists. Sub-Commander Krell had been missing for 6 hours. The entire outpost was on high alert, but they had found nothing. "Report," he barked at the nervous officer who entered. "Sir, 3 more squads have reported incidents." "What kind of incidents?" demanded Vrek. The officer hesitated. "Soldiers seeing things, sir. Shadows moving against walls. Whispers with no source. Equipment turning on by itself." Vrek slammed his fist on the console. "These are elite warriors, not frightened children." "There's more, sir," continued the officer. 2 soldiers claim they saw Sub-Commander Krell walking through a wall. When they approached, he vanished. Vrek froze. "Krell?" "Yes, sir. They say he was transparent and his eyes were wrong." For the first time since the invasion began, real fear flickered across Vrek's face. But he quickly controlled it. "Find these soldiers. Put them in isolation. Their fear is contaminating the others." Hidden in a maintenance shaft, Lieutenant Subin smiled as she deactivated her holographic projector. The image of Krell she had created had worked perfectly. The device, combined with their stealth suits, could now project images that looked like ghostly versions of the Makari themselves. It worked, she whispered into her comm. "They're starting to see their own ghosts now." "Good," replied Major Doyan from his position. "Jiwoo, what's your status?" Across the outpost, Corporal Jiwoo moved silently through the Makari barracks. With a small device, she adjusted the temperature controls. Temperature dropping in Barracks 3. Soon it will be cold enough to see their breath. Minho, Yuna. Sergeant Minho and Corporal Yuna were in the power control room. "Ready to begin power fluctuations on your mark," said Minho. "Execute Phase 1, ordered Doyan." Throughout the outpost, lights began to flicker. Temperature dropped in some areas while rising in others. Strange sounds played through communication systems, and everywhere, ghostly images of Makari soldiers appeared and disappeared. The effect was immediate. Alien soldiers who had been on edge for days now began to panic. Some fired at shadows. Others refused to leave their posts. A few even huddled together, all 4 arms wrapped around themselves. From his hiding place, Do-hyun watched through binoculars as chaos spread among the Makari forces. Their rigid discipline was breaking down. "Phase 2, he ordered. The team activated their modified stealth suits and moved into the open areas of the outpost. They didn't hide now. Instead, they deliberately allowed themselves to be half seen, transparent figures that flickered in and out of visibility. A group of Makari soldiers spotted Jiwoo as she walked calmly down a corridor. They raised their weapons, but their hands shook too badly to aim. "What are you?" asked one in a trembling voice. Jiwoo said nothing. She simply vanished before their eyes, only to reappear behind them. The soldiers broke formation, running in panic. Similar scenes played out across the outpost. The humans used their knowledge of Makari psychology to maximum effect. They appeared where they shouldn't be possible. They moved through walls using the outpost's maintenance tunnels. They created impossible sounds and visions. In the command center, reports flooded in from all sections. Commander Vrek tried to maintain order, but his officers were becoming as frightened as the regular soldiers. "There are no such things as ghosts," he shouted. "These are human tricks." "Sir," said a communications officer, "soldiers in Sector 7 are refusing orders. They say the dead have returned for revenge. Who is spreading these lies? Demanded Vrek. Sir, it's the soldiers you put in isolation. But they're still locked up. Vrek's control finally snapped. Any soldier who speaks of ghosts will be executed. Any officer who allows such talk will join them. We are Makari. We conquered 100 worlds. We will not be defeated by shadows and superstition. His orders spread through the ranks, but rather than restoring discipline, they only increased the terror. Now the soldiers feared their commander as much as they feared the ghosts. As night fell on the outpost, the Ghost Protocol team regrouped in their hidden base. It's working better than we expected, said Subin, reviewing the data. Their command structure is collapsing. But we need to push harder, said Doyan. The invasion fleet arrives tomorrow. Tonight is our last chance. They looked at each other, determined faces lit by dim emergency lights. Tonight, said Juwu, we bring their worst nightmares to life. Dawn broke over the horizon. The Makari outpost was unusually quiet. Many soldiers had not slept, too afraid of what might come in the darkness. Those who had managed to sleep were woken by a new sound, the rumble of approaching vehicles. Commander Vrek rushed to the command center, hoping it was reinforcements from the fleet. Instead, the screen showed Earth military vehicles approaching from all directions. Impossible, he muttered. How did they find us? A communications officer turned to him. Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the human forces. On the main screen appeared Colonel Hyun, his face calm and confident. Commander Vrek, I am Colonel Hyun of the Earth Defense Force. Your position is surrounded. Surrender now. Vrek laughed, though there was a strain in his voice. You are outnumbered and outgunned, human. Your primitive weapons cannot harm our shields. Perhaps, said Hyun. But I believe your soldiers have already met some of our special forces. Vrek's laugh died in his throat. Your tricks and illusions. They will not save you. We shall see, replied Hyun before cutting the transmission. Vrek turned to his officers. Prepare all troops for battle. Today we crush these humans once and for all. But his officers looked uncertain. One of them stepped forward. Sir, many soldiers are refusing to fight. What? Roared Vrek. They say the human ghosts will kill them if they leave the outpost. Vrek grabbed the officer with two of his hands. There are no ghosts. Get them in formation or execute them all. Outside the outpost, Colonel Hyun watched through binoculars as confusion spread among the Makari forces. Beside him stood a communications officer. Sir, Major Do-yeon reports they are ready for the final phase. Hyun nodded. Tell them to proceed. Inside the command center, Vrek was shouting orders when the lights went out completely. Emergency systems failed to activate. The room plunged into darkness. When dim red emergency lights finally flickered on, Vrek found himself alone. His officers had vanished. The doors were sealed. Report, he shouted into his communication device. No answer. Then, a voice spoke from the shadows. Hello, Commander. Vrek spun around. Standing before him was Major Do-yeon, his stealth suit deactivated. Beside him stood Corporal Juwu, hatred burning in her eyes. How did you get in here? Demanded Vrek, reaching for his weapon. The same way we've been moving through your outpost for days, said Do-yeon. Your soldiers called it ghost walking. We call it using maintenance tunnels and stealth technology. Vrek fired his weapon, but Do-yeon and Juwu vanished instantly, their stealth suits activating. The commander fired wildly at the empty room. Show yourselves, he screamed. We are not like you, said Juwu's voice, seeming to come from everywhere at once. We don't need to kill to win. Suddenly, the massive view screen activated. It showed Makari soldiers surrendering to human forces outside. Many were throwing down their weapons and running. Your soldiers have given up, said Do-yeon's voice. They would rather surrender than face what they think are ghosts. And your invasion fleet won't save you, added Juwu. While you were hunting ghosts, we sent a message. Your fleet now knows that Earth is protected by forces they cannot see or understand. Vrek's 4 arms trembled with rage. Lies. The Makari fear nothing. The stealth suits deactivated, and Doyun and Jiwoo appeared directly in front of Vrek. That's where you're wrong, said Doyun. Everyone fears something. Your people fear the unseen, the unexplained. We just helped them face that fear. And now they know the truth, said Jiwoo. There are no ghosts here, just humans who found your weakness and used it against you. Vrek stared at them, finally understanding. You mean, all of this, the hauntings, was technology and tactics, confirmed Doyun. But knowing that makes it worse, doesn't it? Your mighty army wasn't defeated by supernatural forces. It was defeated by humans who could think like ghosts. For a proud Makari commander, this was the ultimate humiliation. His forces had not been defeated by superior weapons or numbers, but by fear itself. Fear of something that wasn't even real. Vrek lowered his weapon. I surrender.